So we are talking about the sci-fi horror movie ANDRON, also known as ANDRON the Black Labyrinth. And this one is written and directed by Francesco Cinicumani and stars Michelle Ryan, Alec Baldwin and Danny Glover. Now this can very easily be summed up as very much a cross between The Hunger Games, The Maze Runner, sprinkled in with a little bit of The Cube and Saw as well, I would say. So the story here, basically, we have 10 people who wake up in some kind of like underground maze, some kind of labyrinth, basically. They don't have any memory, and they're basically, there's a series of kind of traps and kind of challenges that are in this maze. They don't know why they're there. They kind of obviously find each other, and there's some sort of conflict. As to kind of the movie progresses, we find out this is kind of in the future at some point, and this is essentially a sort of televised game headed up by Alec Baldwin's character, and we find out there's kind of more at stake here than maybe we initially thought. And obviously there's a few kind of twists and turns, red herrings, and kind of character motivations that are revealed throughout the movie. So this is very much a kind of dystopian future style movie, like I said, very much in the style of things like The Maze Runner, and I feel this movie exists obviously because those films have been a kind of like relative success, and now we're having the kind of the B-movie versions of these kind of YA movies that are coming out. So how does this one fare up? I have to say the budget does show on this one, but it's not without its merit. I feel this is quite an ambitious film. We will talk about the negatives first of all. First thing for me, like I said, the budget definitely shows through on this film. Now, there are some scenes that are shot on location. There's kind of like in this kind of sort of complex, and they look okay. There are scenes with kind of Alec Baldwin's character, Danny Glover's character, that are shot on green screen, and they're so jarring because they're so obviously on green screen, and it looks kind of so fake. When you kind of then have the next scene, which is back in this kind of labyrinth, and it's all sort of shot on a real location and stuff, it looks kind of jarring when we kind of flip between those two kind of settings. The thing I would have to say, I think the acting here is universally pretty weak, maybe with the exception of Baldwin, who's been doing this stuff for a while now. But the main cast of actors as we have in the Labyrinth are sadly quite weak. We also have one of these survivors is actually played by Skin, who is in the punk band, and she's unfortunately not a great actor. Michelle Ryan here, probably best known for UK fans at least, for EastEnders, but she was in the short-lived Bionic Woman series as well. Again, not the best actress, I have to say. This is probably why she's kind of doing lower budget maybe because it hasn't kind of broken out into the mainstream. And there, there's some sort of questionable performances. And also, I have to say that kind of, again, this goes with the budget. The fight choreography here isn't great. There are a few fight scenes here, and it really does kind of look fake. And I've got to say the actual plot as well, although it's ambitious, I feel it gets kind of convoluted and kind of bogged down in its own mythology, and I think it tries a little bit too hard to kind of pile on all these kind of different twists and turns, and unfortunately kind of collapses under its own weight. But on the plus side of that, I will say that it is quite an ambitious film in regards to it's obviously a lot of layers to it, a lot of things kind of going on, and it's kind of trying to build up this world, but it doesn't have quite the kind of like the pedigree, like for example The Hunger Games. So the world building just isn't there, unfortunately, and but it definitely does have some good ideas. Without kind of going into spoilers, there's a degree of betting going on in regards to these contestants, basically, and I like the ramifications that happen outside of the arena, shall we say, to other people. Well, that was a very good idea, and was kind of gave it this kind of extra edge that I really did like. And I have to say, like I said, the main positives of this film for me is some of the ideas. I don't feel the execution was very good, but the ideas here I feel are pretty strong, even though it is very kind of reminiscent of those YA films that we have seen before. And I have to say, it's nice to kind of see Alec Baldwin chewing his scenery as probably certainly the best actor on screen here, even though he's kind of somewhat limited in his role. I did kind of like him, but he's a fun kind of like bad guy type role. There are a couple of kind of characters, even though I would say the acting isn't fantastic for the kind of the bulk of the cast. There was a couple of kind of characters in the kind of this maze that I kind of liked, so I thought they had a little bit more kind of a little bit more character to them than some others, basically. And like I said, I do like some of the kind of the twists and turns, some of the reveals that happen in this movie. although they're not particularly well executed, I feel they were quite good. And there are some fun moments in this film as well. And I have to say, fair play for them to having a kind of like fairly ambitious movie, but just not having the kind of the funds and maybe the experience to quite kind of see it through into a more of a cohesive piece. But unfortunately, I can't judge a film on its potential. I have to judge the film on its kind of reality, if you like, and how you are going to see it. But overall, I certainly don't feel it's a mess of a film. It's worth watching if you are kind of a big fan of things like The 100 or these kind of YA films. It definitely does fit in with that kind of mould, but just be prepared for a lot cheaper version of it. So I will give this movie a 4.5 out of 10. Certainly worth watching if you're into that kind of thing. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? So leave me a comment, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.